Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game, and all of you members of the Duval Devout, welcome in. Great to have you in the place here. And listen, it's finally been attuned. We told you it would happen Friday. It will be happening Friday. I'm sure I have a good friend and personal champion that's in the middle, if he hasn't already pre-written an article about this happening today, Friday. The Jacksonville Jaguars have their new GM and James Gladstone. Yes, it wasn't Ian Cunningham. It wasn't the favorite, but the guy that was Travis's number 2. Even though he took the time to tell you, hey, wait, no one's talking about this past Wednesday. Nonetheless, we got Gladstone as the guy, as the as the GM, and as Robert says in the comments, done deal. That's a good way to describe it, Robert. Officially announced not only through Adam Schefter, but more importantly, the Jacksonville Jaguars themselves on the social media. But I've poetically waxed long enough. Let me get the actual card-carrying member of the Duval Devout of the show. I know him as my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, BigCatCountry.com. What's going on, my man?
And it's exactly as you would have hoped for. The only thing we're missing is the fact that they didn't release the news at midnight tonight. That was basically it.
Yeah, a little bit behind the curtain. I get a call shortly after the announcement was made from Travis. It's like, hey, you want to do an episode? Because like this way, it's not fly by night, through the seat of our pants, and then maybe we can get a breakfast show up for you here. Right. It's a nice little happy hour edition episode. Hopefully you have a chance to check this out on your drive home if you're watching it live. And if you're not, hey, listen, make sure you check it out on the podcast as well, or on the YouTube channel, Duval Dive YouTube channel, of course, Fans First Sports Network, powering the podcast as well. Initial reaction, sir. I know you had done the analysis and the deep dive to show basically the Duval Devout at large that they have a lot of quality candidates on the docket here.
Yes.
Gladstone's the pick. He was your second guy, but you had pointed out there was a lot of youth. Land the plane. What was your opinion?
Well, I said from day one, hey, you knew if you like Liam Cohen, I'm a fan. I like Liam Cohen. Yes. Then you're going to like James Gladstone because of their qualities. Their main traits are the fact that both of them, just everyone will tell you they are ahead of the game. They just get it. You ever have those people that just fall into a job and it's like they were born to do this. Like they should have been doing it since they were 6 years old, like that. That's what you hear about Liam Cohen. That's what you hear about James Gladstone. And the only question mark is, hey, just have they done it long enough? We're going to have that answered on the fly. But at the end of the day, the person that you got in your head coach, the person that you got in your general manager, understand the game. They understand ball, and they are generally considered, I would say, quote unquote, geniuses in what they do. Hey, man, that makes it a good pick. You can't go wrong with that.
When you're a genius among NFL talents, that word's getting thrown around. That obviously is a big deal. And I think a piece that we loosely alluded to it with familiarity on the Wednesday episode when we were talking about the GM breakdown, and you dove even further than you dove before on the dive with the GMs. I think fit is a deciding factor here, right? And not to say that Liam Cohen couldn't have gotten along with Ian Cunningham, but if you have an opportunity to work for a guy with whom you can have a Vulcan mind meld early on, quickly out the gate, without any sort of, learning curve or getting to know you kind of period, especially with the mud as quickly as the Jags have to move right now to get in on the upcoming draft. I feel like, albeit maybe a relatively short-term concern, was part of the conversation. You have to think so too, Travis. Yeah.
Yes, part of the conversation, but also interestingly, if you're someone like James Gladstone and like Liam Cohen, who come from the Los Angeles Rams, background, that is also a team who doesn't generally care about showing up to the combine. They don't generally go. They objectively, they don't go to the combine. So that may be a little bit less of an urgency now all of a sudden, because there's no real reason that he has to necessarily be there if he agrees with that philosophy.
Well, and I think Liam Cohen's case is he's going to want to at least show up there from kind of a, for lack of a better word, networking standpoint, right? He doesn't have a big name necessarily as a head coach. And if you're in a position to where, you're a big deal because you're the guy in Tampa and you did a good job, that has a name, and the Jags made a good hire doing it that way. But it's a whole other ball game when you're compared to, let's say, like an Andy Reid type, right?
Okay. I mean, sure. I mean, again, I believe that the coach will be there no matter what. Because to your point, it's a networking event in very many ways, and not to mention that a lot of this game is built on relationships. You want to be able to just get in contact with guys for those future, head coaching roles, for those future position coach roles, for those future front office roles, things of that nature. Like, you just need to come across more guys, and the main way you do that is by showing up at some of these events, or just as many of the events as you can show up to, because the guys who have been in the league the longest are some of the best at the role, because they also have those relationships and people trust them across the league.
Yeah, no, I think there's that too, and I mean, that's the downside to having youth, is they aren't established. But sometimes, the hot new article can win the day too in other ways as well. Some people getting excited to get on the ground floor of certain action, for lack of a better term here too,
sure,
as well. So yeah, I mean, that's certainly beyond question there too. We mentioned fit being the deciding factor, and I'm trying to pull something up here as I ask this question to you, Travis. You mentioned,
if you want to talk about fit. If you want to
no,
talk
I
about
don't.
fit.
Let me land the play. Hold on, and you can add that in. But the question I want to ask: is there anything else, or is it just fit that landed the plane that you feel like got Gladstone in over Cunningham?
I mean, well, if you believe the rumors, and that's always a hard one, because the rumors can be overblown. Rumors can be straight up lies, depending on, I mean, it's lying season. So you know what that is. But nevertheless, if you believe the rumors, then you can already lean on the fact that the word on the street was that Cunningham's interview left some meat on the bone, left a little bit to be desired. So like it would have, a role that initially sounded like it was going to be in Cunningham's role to have, later became, well, maybe it may have been 90% chance it was going to be in Cunningham, and now all of a sudden it's 60-40 after his interview, because it's like, it just didn't wow us. And if James Gladstone is known for nothing else, he's the man who owns the room. If you've seen those Rams, draft videos and everything else, he's the guy in front. He is the guy speaking. He has their full attention. He is articulately stating exactly what his plan is and implementing that plan. And he did that for 2 seasons very well in these last 2 drafts, specifically the 2023 and the 2024 drafts for the Rams. I say that to say, it feels like a situation where it's possible that Ian Cunningham may have just fumbled the ball here. And I'm just going to be honest with it. That's just my interpretation of it. I mean, if we can start with his outfit, and I know that's a small thing, and I know it sounds petty, and maybe that's just me, but if for those folks who hadn't seen the outfits, like, this became a conversation by every person that I know who even remotely grew up black. And I'm sorry to make it a black-white thing, because it's not a black-white thing necessarily, but it is. It's like one of those things where you say, hey, man, you going to a job interview at McDonald's, you better wear a tie. Or if you're going to a job interview at whatever the place, you have to dress up. You have to, button this thing up, come right, come looking right. And I didn't think he came with that dress, frankly. For those who haven't seen it, take a look at on any of the socials. It was kind of just a mismatch, different color top, different color bottom, didn't look like dress pants, things of that nature. And then you also then hear that the interview left a little bit to be desired. Then it's like, oh well, maybe that was a sign of something. Maybe he did lose that interview as soon as they saw how he was dressed. But then you will never truly know. But the gist of it is, he didn't land the plane. The runway was open, and he didn't land the plane. And the other rookie, the hungry, I got to call him a rookie because he's the youngest general manager candidate in Gladstone. Yeah, the young buck came ready, came prepared, did what he was supposed to do, and landed the plane. And they fell in love with him, and they already had their working relationship with them. And there you go, man.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with a lot of that too. There's a side by side with all of them out there on the socials, and by far the least dressed among them was Cunningham. I think maybe that's part of it psychological. I'll also say you and I were like, hey, guys, this is really easy. I worked with the Ravens. I
Work with the Eagles.
Thank you. I worked with the Eagles. I worked with two places that kicked butt at drafting. What are we doing here? But and maybe there is an element of arrogance that he presented. I don't know. But with that in mind, let me go ahead and pull up this statement on the socials from Jags owner Shad Khan. It's my honor to introduce James Gladstone as the new general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars. James emerged as my choice and our choice following a painstaking but energizing interview process that left nothing to doubt. Every candidate delivered, and I'm grateful to them all for their participation and time spent with us this week in Jacksonville. In the end, we found James to be a class ahead and exceptional in every regard: vision, new ideas, communication, chemistry, and a keen understanding of the league and our team, to name a few of many virtues he will bring immediately to the Jaguars. It's going to be fun watching James work with our football leadership team of Liam Cohen, Tony Baselli, and Tony Khan. Interesting that he's mentioned here, by the way. But most of all, it will be rewarding. I am confident that this is an occasion to thank Jaguars fans everywhere for their support and faith. Excuse me, let me read that as we should. I want to take the occasion to thank the Duval devout everywhere for their support and faith over the years. I know we can count on them warmly to welcome James to Duval while rallying behind our organization and team as we chart a new and promising path forward and inspire Travis to get rid of his "this team makes me drink" shirt. Okay, I made that last part up. But so the thing I think that's interesting, and I think a lot of new and new vision stuff coming up there. I'm going to read a tea leaf of my own here. How many times did you hear modern football in Liam Cohen's introductory speech? I think that's a factor. I'm not saying they're saying that Ian Cunningham has the game passing him by any stretch. What I am saying is that they think perhaps that Gladstone has more on the pulse of what new NFL, modern NFL looks like, perhaps.
That's it. That is it. If there is nothing more you can argue for that man, you will say if he is nothing, he is modern. And he is going to run this scouting department like a modern department. He is going to help this front office become a more modern front office. And because of the fact that you have a new EVP, you have a new head coach who is someone who leans into this modern NFL in Liam Cohen, you're then going to have a general manager and a front office who are truly open to doing things in a different way and not the way that we've done things in the past that have been a little bit stagnant, that have been a little bit older. So because of that, it's like, hey, maybe he came into the interview and just had different new ideas. As something as simple as that, and maybe Ian Cunningham, being from a very consistent organization in the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens, is someone who maybe was trying to do things in the old school way, and that didn't, and maybe that track didn't play well for this audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, let's do what we often do on this show and quote the great and wise T. Wiggs, Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars. We've heard enough talk in Duval about we need to do it the same way, but we need to do it harder, faster, stronger, better. It's time for different. And I think what was achieved here today concludes a search for different across the board. Let me get this comment real quick from Aiden. One of the biggest positives is James Gladstone has been the director of scouting, probably has done a good amount of work on this class. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. I don't think that's
Yeah, absolutely. And his scout space see things in a different way. So that's going to be a very interesting one to see how that kind of plays out, because for a lot of general managers, just being real, for a lot of general managers coming into your first class with a new team, more often than not, that draft class ends up being one of the worst draft classes. Sure. And I'm just being honest, because that's kind of how it works out, because you've had less time to kind of put together your staff. You've had your guys have had less time. Not other guys beforehand had a whole year to look at these guys. Your guys might have a few months. Like, that's just kind of how it works out. So
I don't think it's a shocking thing.
Yeah. And that's not a knock on anyone. That's just kind of just objectively what happens.
Absolutely.
So nevertheless, it's going to be interesting to see how this works out, because he has looked at this college landscape for this current class, but also his scouts may have a different way of looking at this, and he's going to have to teach them to look at it in a different way and kind of see if they can come to the same conclusion also without likely going to the NFL, combine. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Hef brings up a good point. He's going to have to work off what they currently have as well, and I think Law is part of that. I mean, credit to him. for at least running the meetings and doing all the stuff as the acting guy. I think that's a hair. Zenith jumps in. This is funny. If I can get the mouse to actually respond to me when I click the button, there we go. Team no gray hair. Hey, sure. Hef poses the question, really curious how the front office looks post-draft OTAs and the start of the preseason. Yeah, I mean, obviously winning the press conference is all they've really achieved thus far, if even that to this point, because we haven't talked to James Gladstone at this point. Obviously, that'll be upcoming. And of course, you'll see something about it from both Travis D. Holmes of Big Cat Country and myself, Fans First Sports Network. This is fun. I gotta let this in. Trevin Powell comments, our GM and coach can squat down now without their knees falling apart.
Bruh,
What is this feeling?
I am older than all these guys. I feel old.
I resent that. They don't fall apart. They just sound like a certain brand of cereal has milk poured into it. That's all. Okay. It's a Snap Crackle Pop reference for those that don't get it. Okay. But yeah, final thoughts. I mean, for the Jags, what exactly is the next move here? And are we talking, how much draft are we talking here, right?
I mean, I'm happy to just have the general manager. So now we have to do a lot of work to look at these Rams' last 2 draft classes and kind of figure out how, if you see any trends in how they build their roster and what that means for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's going to be some absolute stuff that we're going to have for you guys on the show and tell, and also on BigCatCountry.com and Fans First Sports Network. So we're here for it.
That's right.
We'll get into it though.
I like it. You know what? This was just meant to be a quick one to react. I think you and I here have kind of captured the essence of all that. Great stuff from you guys in the comments today.
Man. But a 35-year-old general manager, 39-year-old head coach, 29-year-old offensive coordinator, and a 42-year-old defensive coordinator. Hey man, the youth movement is on.
Hef makes a quick point here that I want to kind of respond to. Rams draft heavy from the Senior Bowl participants. Yeah, I think use of those games. For those who don't know, Hef, I'm sure you know this. I'm not commenting on you directly. But there may be others out there that do this. As somebody who's covered a number of all-star games, air quotes, the games mean jack. You need to be at the practices. And it's that interaction where they're really kind of putting on the cap and getting the glass out and looking at things. I mean, I learned more. I only went, the one that I covered the most was the Hula Bowl here because it was in my backyard, and not to say it's a super great game, but I learned more from watching those days of practice than I ever did in any of my coverage of the Shrine Bowl. Trey Hendrickson wasn't even the defensive player of the game for the Shrine Bowl. Now I voted for him to do that, but like, that's the kind of stuff that happens, So
and we previously talked about this a little bit. I just wanted to reiterate it. So now that we have this confirmation of what the front office is going to look like, and also the coaching staff is going to look like, we have some solid experience on the staff. But again, I just wanted to point out, as far as the leadership is concerned, first year EVP, first year general manager, first year head coach, first year offensive coordinator, first year defensive coordinator.
A part of me thinks that's by design.
At this point, you have to say it's by design. They were the antithesis of everything that the Jacksonville Jaguars were. No different than a team is normally very good on the defense and they stink that year. Then the next head coach is going to be an offensive guy. But in this case, they had an older, antiquated system on offense as far as the head coach that was running things and how his way of doing things. You could argue the same exact thing for Trent Baalke with the long arm, long girth legs, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call that.
Measurable.
Yes, and now they've gone the exact opposite with the general manager, with the next head coach. That's when I say youth movement in every way. This is it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it's gonna work out. But we gonna all wait and see.
Yeah, Zenith brings up that Shad is patient. I think that's part of it. I also think I think it cannot be overlooked, in my opinion, that the theme this year is modern, which is ironic because what we also see out there is the age-old adage of building inside out, offensive and defensive line first, yet somehow is going to drive this team. It's a good mix of everything that I'm encouraged, but then again, it was commented earlier, it's time to see what happens when the rubber hits the road. I think Yeah. So with that in mind, Travis, tell the world.
Hey, you can find my article covering James Gladstone being named the Jaguars general manager on BigCatCountry.com. It was out before we even started recording, so definitely go and take a look at that. And yeah, you can follow me on all the socials: Travis D. Holmes, Twitter, X, whatever you call it, Blue Sky, Facebook, all of them, man. You know, come on. So let's talk about some football this offseason. Let's kind of get into it, man. Where can you be found, sir?
Yeah, it'll be time very shortly to do more draft action over and above, by the way, our conversation regarding Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. Make sure you check that out. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Spill if you're feeling tipsy. As at the SOTG, find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my writings with the Fans First Sports Network covering the Orlando Magic, who were back in action and actually beat the Atlanta Hawks. Thank goodness for that, if you're a Magic fan. And also, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars and my work with UCF football and basketball, both men's and women's. You can hear me on the Night Shift podcast, or hey, come say hi if you make it out Saturday to women's basketball. I will be there. I will also be at the Kia Center as well on Sunday for the Orlando Magic. And hey, if you're up there checking out 1010XL and you're a Magic fan, I'll be talking on Open Gym with RJ Saunders that morning. So make sure you check out all of the above there. You thought you was the only one that went on 1010, didn't you, Travis? No. So, for my good friend and personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, for all you commenters lighting it on fire, even on the short instant reaction show, thank you very much. I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.